Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining TDRhimConsulting's People First podcast. We have a phenomenal guest this evening. You all are going to be in for a treat. Let me read Zymir Brunson's bio for you, and it is a little lengthy, but he has so much going on. So first, thank you for being here. We call him Ziggy. I'm going to call him Ziggy. Ziggy, thank you for being here. I'm going to read this bio. Just give me 1 second to make sure I capture everything correctly. Zymir Brunson is a recent graduate of Temple University's Boyer College of Music with a Bachelor's of Science in Music. He served as co-vice president for the Temple University Progressive NAACP. Along with his duties with the NAACP, Zymir is a former choir member of Temple Gospel Ministries, where he led as the student music director. Additionally, he was a former radio host for the university's student-run radio station WHIP. He learned professional theater after spending 4 years at the New Freedom Theater of Philadelphia. In his many musically related talents, Zymir has performed across the tri-state area and beyond. Outside of his education and musical enjoyment, he loves cooking and baking. Zymir's career plans include becoming a voice teacher, musician, and cook. Through his work and passion for social change, he hopes to move the needle on important political and economic issues facing hard-hit communities. Zymir is now the president of the Philadelphia NAACP Youth Council. He also serves as a music teacher and choir director at the City School of Philadelphia. Wow. Did I get it all?
You got it.
That's
You got
all,
it.
y'all. That's all we doing.
That's all. That's all.
Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you. Yes.
How you doing?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
I am well. I am well. I am well. So tell me what's going on with you besides that big old bio. What you got going on?
Oh man. You know what I will say for right now, I am finishing up finals for my students. I teach 6th through 10th grade,
Okay.
which is it's a general music education class. And so this week and next week we will be finishing up on our finals. I have some written finals. I have some performance-based finals. So I'm just excited to get those out of the way. That's a lot of grading, but we're at the end.
We're at the end. Praise Jesus.
We're at the end.
So you know the theory around the podcast, and we talked a little bit before we jumped on. So my goal is to provide authentic leadership in a community and a world where I think we are lacking.
Mhm.
And really, authentic leadership boils down to just speaking the truth and being authentic in your leadership and your everyday person, and bringing your whole self to either work or play or wherever you are, and then allowing others to be able to observe you as a leader. When we make mistakes, we own it as a leader. And so, one of the things I intend with the outreach for this podcast is to just let people see what everyday, regular old leadership looks like and how to be authentic in it, even when times are challenging.
Mm,
Makes sense?
makes sense.
So, I only have just a few questions, but I want it to be as organic as possible. And I know with your personality, we're going to be just fine. We're going to be just fine, Ziggy.
No, we're gonna do it.
So,
We're gonna do it.
so tell me what prompted you to enter the realm of leadership.
I think what prompted me at a very young age was my mouth.
Mhm.
I've always been a very outspoken individual. My friend said it. I think he said it. I think last year, and we were having a conversation with another friend of mine. And he said, "Yeah, Ziggy always been outspoken, and they had no problem saying how he felt." And
Right.
I think that, like you already have said, thus far, is that you have to be a truth teller.
Mhm.
And that's one of the important things, in my opinion. Um, if you want to be an authentic leader, if you want to be someone that really stands for people and you stand for things that are greater than yourself, you have to be willing to speak for those who can't speak for themselves. You have to be willing to speak the truth when people don't want to hear it. And you have to be willing to speak not only the truth, right, with a capital T, but you also have to speak on your truth with a lowercase t, right?
Mhm.
Your life's experience,
Mhm.
your perspective, your ideology, your philosophy, your views and perspective on life, culture, history, etc., etc. So I think that it's always, it has always been a part of my human fabric to be rather outspoken and very honest and direct about how I
Mhm.
feel. So that's what I would say kind of propelled me into leadership. Is
Okay. You almost couldn't help it. You couldn't
no,
help it.
I couldn't help it. No.
You look back and they said, "Who's going to be the leader?" And you were thinking, "I'm the only one standing up front of everybody," and took a step back. I guess I'm it, huh?
Guess I met.
So I appreciate that response. One of the things that we are working on in my workplace professionally is from a DEI perspective, looking at the trauma informed pieces. And we just talked about trauma informed leadership.
Ooh,
And really, when you say authentic leadership, being able to bring the whole person, flawed and all, to the table.
that's right.
That's what we're talking about because you can't always leave it at the door, right? You know, people say, leave it
Mm,
at the door. You can't. You got to bring your whole self,
mm,
messed up, jacked up, all of it. Bring it.
mm,
And then we figure it out, right?
that's
And so
right.
that's what makes us authentic. So who are your leader heroes, Ziggy, and why?
Oh, I have so many. And depending on what day, what time of the day
So,
you ask me, it might change. And I have to give you three.
okay, I'll take
You
three.
know, that's the number of perfection, right? Um, the first one I would give you has to be Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King.
Okay.
And I know that's so cliche. However, I just can remember as a little boy, I always watched his documentary every Sunday faithfully. I watched maybe because I had about 5 to 6 different documentaries on Martin Luther King on DVD that I would watch on a consistent basis
Okay.
because his life, his legacy, and his servitude just spoke to me at such a young age. Um, what I loved about Martin Luther King was, and this is what Snoop Dogg said recently. He said it in reference to Tupac, but I can use it also for Dr. King. He said that to be human is to be many things at once.
Mm,
And when Snoop Dogg said that, it resonated with me in such a way that I said that's it. Like that's what being a human being truly is. You can be kind, but you can also be cantankerous. You can be funny, but you can also be very, very serious. You
yeah.
can be sweet as pie. You can be all these wonderful things that people have to say about you, but you have another side or several other different sides to you that people have not been exposed to, or they have, or they don't really want to be exposed to. But
Yeah.
that's a part of being human. And at a very young age, I learned of some of Martin Luther King's indiscretions as a human being, not as a
Mhm.
leader, but as a human being and as a person who was bound to a body that
Yeah.
naturally produces sin, right? And
Wow.
so when I found out that the FBI had found tape recordings or had sent tape recordings to Coretta Scott King, uh,
Mhm.
having extramarital affairs, I was so upset. It really
Mhm.
shattered me because I looked at him differently as a leader. Like, how could he do this? He's a preacher and pastor, and he's making all these great philosophical and theological notions and statements throughout the world and across the country, and he's doing all and then it was in that very moment that I had to accept him as a human being that just so happened to be a leader,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
so he's on the top of my list, flaws and all.
Yes. He was a person first.
Oh my goodness, he was
That's
a
what we're talking
person.
about. Yeah.
He was a person. My second leader, she's my shero, Maya Angelou.
Ooh, yeah.
Maya Angelou is my favorite orator.
Okay.
She could speak and I can listen to her for hours upon hours, along with Dr. King, but she
Yeah,
had such a character to her voice that I thought was unparalleled. Um, and she said so much wonderful things. I love
yeah,
quotes. And so
yeah.
there are so many quotes that have lessons inside of them that I
Mhm.
always gravitate towards. I could go on for hours upon hours about how much I love Maya Angelou, uh,
Yeah, I would
because
say,
yeah, she listen, she would say stuff and then it was biblical. I was like,
yeah,
oh my goodness. I said, oh my goodness, she's in the word.
yeah,
Like, I
yeah.
don't even
You
know
know
if
that.
she was aware of it herself. Maybe she was, because she was, she claimed to be a believer. So I'm like, oh my goodness, like when people show you who they are, that's in alignment when Jesus says, you'll know them by the fruit they bear. When Jesus
Hmm.
says, out of all the virtues, courage is the most important. I'm thinking of Joshua 1 verse 9, have not I commanded you to be strong and courageous? I was like, she's in the book.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
she,
And people don't know it. That's how we're supposed to
no,
minister. That's how we're supposed to minister. People don't want Bible thumping. They just want authenticity. But if you are made of what you are made of, and God is telling you to minister, He gonna give you what you need to. You better stop. We finna have church. All right. Okay.
I'm trying to tell you. Okay, and then let me give you my last one so we can move on. I would have to say, and this is just where I am, my last one would be Adam Clayton Powell Jr.,
Okay.
who I think was an unsung hero. I'm actually watching now a series called The Godfather of Harlem. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
And
You are, where they really kind of, and I'm only on episode 3, but somebody put me onto it yesterday because I mentioned his name. And he's another one that, despite all his indiscretions and
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
he's a wonderful leader, right? Strictly political, though, very political. And in some senses, and in some sense, I think the gentleman, one of his documentaries said, I don't think Adam Clayton Powell Jr. was immoral or moral. He said, I think he was amoral.
mm-hmm.
He was just strictly political. And he was a machine that really got things done for Black people. To be the first Black Congress in New York City at that time was major.
Mm-hmm.
He's the predecessor to Martin Luther King Jr.
Okay.
So there's no Martin Luther King Jr. without an Adam Clayton Powell Jr.,
Mm-hmm.
who was a minister,
Yeah.
a congressman, civil
Uh-huh.
rights leader, but politician, and was a womanizer.
Mm-hmm.
Could cuss you out, but was charismatic, handsome. So he was once again another individual who was all these different things, but we don't even talk about him and how he moved the needle on so many different things for the Black community in terms of education and equity, um, educational equity, in
Mm-hmm.
the community. Who also was at the White House on a number of occasions, making things happen, creating these bills,
Yeah.
so that we can move forward as a community.
Yeah.
So as
Yes.
now in my fickle, mind and way, those are my 3 for now.
I love it. Now I have to tell you my favorite of I love Martin Luther King, but Maya Angelou, what I love about her is every single word had value. Like she
Mm,
didn't waste her words, and I love that. Like if
mm,
it ain't nothing to say, then don't say nothing.
mm,
She did not waste her words. And
mm,
you find people like that few and far between. Few
mm.
and far between. So yeah, I appreciate that. Look at you with 3. I'm trying to take up 3. Go on with yourself. I see you. So what do you find most beneficial, Ziggy? Um, what do you find most beneficial to your continued growth as a leader?
I'm humble.
Mm,
Um,
mhm. I,
my
I, I get that.
I gotta bring her in again, right? Maya Angelou. She
Yeah.
would say that she didn't like modesty.
Mm-hmm.
She said, I have no dealings with that. She said,
Mm-hmm.
I think that falls off very easily. I'm not going to use the analogy she used, it was very inappropriate, but she said it falls off really quick.
Okay.
It's not sustainable. She said, but humility
Mm.
is a different type of um, acknowledgement of how low you are supposed to be, and how less of you this is really about.
Yes.
And so I stay humble and I try to, as the scriptures say, not let my left hand know what my right hand is doing, right? While I applaud myself and I'm grateful for the things that I have accomplished, and I think that I've done some great things, and I think that I'm a great person, and et cetera, et cetera. But I know that there's always more that I have to do and that I should be doing.
Mhm.
Know that I still like to push myself to be more and to be better as a leader. I'm
Yeah.
very, very critical of myself because I think it's necessary to critique, um, like you said, your leadership, because I don't want anybody falling through the cracks on my watch,
Yes.
because that I will be held accountable for
Mm,
that.
mm.
Um, and I want to make sure that I'm as close to right in my dealings with people, in my servitude, um, to them.
Mm.
I would consider myself to be, they have all the different types of leaderships. They have transformational, they have servant leadership, and actually those two right there, I can stop. I think those are more so who I am. I don't think
Mhm.
I'm just one of those different types of
Yeah.
leadership they have out there. I think I'm a mixture of those two in particular,
Mhm.
because I know that as a leader, I'm holding people up,
Yeah.
right? They're not holding me up. I'm holding them up.
Yeah. I
You know.
love that. Yeah, I do. I love that. And I think I even shared on another podcast where we have the same pastor. When our pastor said, Pastor Dan said, like, that's the paradigm we should be looking at, and that's how it should be. It should be the leader on the bottom holding everybody else up. And I'm like, I love that. It
Mm,
just is, it's so good. And it puts you in a perspective of servitude, which is where
yeah,
we should be as leaders. That's, we want to be able to be poured into so that we can take that time to pour into somebody else. Because somebody
absolutely.
prayed for us long time ago, right? And so
That's it.
we can't, how dare we not? How dare we not pour into other people?
Mm,
I love that. I love that. So, talk to me about what is one memorable leadership lesson that you're willing to share with our audience tonight, Ziggy?
one leadership lesson. So I had to learn, because when you're a teacher, you're a leader, of course,
Yes.
right? Um, and I've been a director of a couple shows, and productions in my day, and
Mhm.
in those roles, I had to learn not to take anything personal.
Mm, mm.
So when
Yeah.
I started, and let me be very elaborate when I say that, I started working, at a summer program back in 2019. It was a summer intensive, and I was asked to teach drama and be the director of Shrek the Musical.
Okay.
And that was my first time really teaching a bunch, like a mass group of
Yeah.
students that range from ages six, no, I'm sorry, 5 to 13.
Wow.
And I'm 20 years old at the time.
Mm.
And I know that depending on, how I get treated or how I feel, I can be a hothead, I can be a little impatient, but I do love children and I do love the arts, and
Yeah.
especially this particular art form. And so I would recognize that I would be snapping on the kids when they would act the fool. I'd like my go-to was to raise my voice. My go-to was to go off on them when they didn't do things right, or when they were, operating in a way that was just defiant. So the only thing that I knew was to get upset at their misdeeds and their wrongdoing, or
Okay.
me feeling as though they weren't focused or doing, they weren't sticking to the task.
Yeah.
And I remember my dance teacher, she said, I was like you one day, once upon a time. And she said the director, his name was his name was John Allen. He's actually one of the founders of New Freedom Theater. He
Mm-hmm.
told her, you got to stop taking that so personal.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I said, oh, that was also not only for you at that point in your life, that word was also for me, that
Yeah.
I too can't take
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is they don't do as my students or as my cat or the people that I've casted in these roles. I can't take that personal because that ain't about me. It's about their process and
Mm-hmm.
their growth and their development. So you can't take on certain things that are out of your control.
Mm.
And so I not only apply that to my profession, but I apply that to a lot of different components to my life and of my life.
Yeah.
Not to take anything personal. Don't assume intent, right? Don't make any assumptions
Mm.
about a person's heart, or a person's, ignorance or their lack of awareness, or when they do or say certain things to you that offend you.
Mm.
Um, it was TD Jakes that said it today. I've learned to speak without being offensive, and I've learned how to listen without being defensive.
Mm. Okay.
Learned how to leave my opponents with
Yeah.
dignity.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I like
And
that.
the two stanzas, they make more sense for this particular notion that I'm talking about. Is just making sure that I am open to listen without being defensive and speak
Yes.
without being offensive.
Wow. Lessons learned.
Mm.
Lessons learned. And I will tell you, just listening to you, I received some of that. I received some of that. Because you don't know you're talking to me, but you're talking to me. I say, I hear you. Thank you very much. I received that. Yes, so often I will hear people say, like, it's not personal. It's
Mm,
not personal.
mm.
It's not personal. And in my mind, I'm like, okay, I'm in my professional realm. It's not personal, it's business.
Right, right.
But no, on the inside of me, my little feelings is hurt. Right. And you trying to play like tough, like corporate. You like, what? You just hurt my feelings and stuff all over me, all
Yeah.
over in the corner. And here you go. So I received that, Siggy. Thank you very much.
Hey, that
Um,
word was for me first.
yes, yeah. Yeah, take heed lest you fall. Because when I'm thinking I got it, I'm like, oh, no, that I might have just buried it. I don't know that I had it. I think I buried it because
Mm,
now it resurfaced and I realized, oh, you are still there. How
mm.
about that?
That's good.
So,
That's good.
yeah. So, yeah, appreciate that. I appreciate it. So, what advice do you have for new and potential leaders?
Mm. I think I have a couple of things again.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the first thing, of course, like I said, is to always be humble.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the scriptures talk about it so many times. That word humility comes up. God resists the proud, but gives grace to the humble. I want His grace, so I'm
Yeah.
going to be humble.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Smile on me, because when you're humble, that's when God can intervene.
Mm,
That's when God can actually step in because you invited Him,
yeah.
right? When you are in sin, you are cocky as I don't know what. You think
Mm,
you can do any and everything that you want, right? And you think that you're untouchable, right?
yes.
Which was what Nebuchadnezzar was. That
Mm,
story to me is a story of how one gets to a place of humility and low thirst, because to be in sin and to be prideful is to say you don't need God.
Mm.
But it's in your humility that you say you need help, that
Yeah.
you need you need that assistance. You need for God to step in. I don't got it all, God. I don't
Mm.
know everything. I don't have everything. So
Mm-hmm.
in my low state,
Yes.
in my lowliest of states, I need you,
Yeah.
because I'm
Yeah.
here. You're all. I can't even say he's up here, right here. It's infinity with him.
Yeah.
Well, in my lowly state, I need you. This could go bad without you.
And
As a
it will.
leader, yeah, as a leader, it can go any way but good if I am not
Mm.
humble.
Mm.
So
Oh
staying in
my
a
God.
place of humility and saying, you know what, I don't have it all together. I don't know everything, but I'm willing to learn and be open and to receive whatever it is that God has set up for me.
Mm.
So
That's what he
all
says. The Word says, in my weakness, he is made strong. Right? And
we
my
got
weakness is made strong. You
we
hit that nail right on the head.
we
That
got to know
humility.
that.
Woo, it
We
puts
got to
us in a
know
it puts us in the posture. It puts us in a posture of receptivity. It puts us in a
that.
posture of worship. It puts
Mm,
us in a posture of praise, because you know that whatever he does is going to be perfect. We just have to surrender to his will, because his will is going to be done. It's
mm.
going to be done, right? It's going to be done.
That's
That's
right.
like Jonah. Jonah don't want to go to Nineveh. Jonah, you know you're going to Nineveh. You know you're going to Nineveh. Then you got to get swallowed by the fish, and you still going to go to Nineveh. You should have just went to Nineveh. Right? I
That's
know.
it.
Sometimes you take the roundabout way.
That's it. That's it.
Take the roundabout way.
Now, my second thing I would say, after you're humble, um, be willing to be willing. Well, I want to say this in the right order. Be humble and be willing to apologize.
Mm, mm,
Always be willing to
mm.
say, forgive me for not knowing, for offending, or um, having said something a certain way or doing something a certain way.
Yeah.
Um, I've apologized on a number of occasions
Mm,
for um, sometimes, like I said, that temper of mine. And I've gotten so much better, thank God,
praise God.
because at Temple, I was a young hothead, and I
Mm,
snapped on people many a times for crossing me as a leader,
mm,
or not doing it my way. Because I'm not a perfectionist, but I don't like any old thing going. I'm
mm.
not that type of person. Like, things have to be in order, things
Yeah.
have to be organized, things have
Yeah.
to be set up in such a way that it's excellent, not
Yes.
perfect. But when you look up that word excellent, it means
Mm,
outstanding, right? It
yeah.
stands out to people
Yeah.
because you can tell that you put some work into that thing.
Mhm.
And so I sometimes work with people that don't have the same standard as me.
Right.
So that makes me angry.
Yeah.
You disrespected my standard and my expectation.
Uh-huh.
After
Uh-huh.
I made it clear to you over and over again what the expectation and the
What?
standard was. Um, and so I'm that type of person where I have snapped on people, and I'd feel bad later because the Holy Ghost then convicted me. Said, what it's either Ephesians 4 or Ephesians 6, be angry but sin not.
Mm, mm.
And I'll tell you, that sin not part.
I could put that in there. I could put that piece in there right there.
God, all you had to say was just be angry. I didn't need you to give me the ladder.
Absolutely. And how about that is what we're talking about when we talk about authentic leadership, that self-awareness, and the Holy Spirit just getting with you, just getting with you,
That's it.
right?
That's it.
Whoo! How
That's
about
it.
that?
I
Oh
love that
my
you
God.
said that. That's the key word. When they had me speak for a chapel at my school, because I'm at a Christian school, so we do chapel every Friday. They
Okay.
like to rotate when teachers speak, and they asked me to. And one of the things I said to them, as you all transition into, the next grade and the next level of your life, you have to be self-aware.
Mm.
You have to always be willing to self-evaluate. And I think that's the last thing I would say, as far as being humble, being willing to apologize when you've offended somebody, but also be willing to always be self-aware
Yes.
and do the evaluations and the work that's necessary for your leadership to continually grow,
Mm.
right? Because never become stagnant, never become so complacent that you say, this is just who I am, and take it or leave it. No, no, you won't go anywhere being like that. You
Mhm.
are always having to move forward. And
Yeah.
and this is a saying that I think my dance teacher, she's like a wise old owl to me. She would always say things. And the one thing that she told, I had the opportunity to work with her for about a year and a half. We were teaching the students, the different disciplines, singing, acting, and vocal arts. I mean, well, that's the same thing. Vocal arts / music, dance, and acting. And one of the things that she said was sometimes your best is not what's required. And I said, huh? She said, sometimes what you have to offer does not fit the standard or the expectation that's currently set. And so you now have to make your best better.
Okay. Yes, I
And
like
when,
that.
right. And because when
Yeah.
she, I'm like, what you mean somebody's bet? But when she said the latter, I said, that's it. And I share that wherever I go. You have to always make sure that who you are is
Hmm.
not who you are now is not who you will be in the next year or
Yes.
even the next week.
Hmm.
Maya Angelou said, and she was talking about in reference to Malcolm X, she said he had the courage to change.
Mm.
You know what I said yesterday so fervently and with such passion? I don't believe that anymore.
Yeah. Yes.
Nothing changed. So having the courage to say, you know what? I know I said this as a leader the other day, but I've
Yeah.
changed my mind.
Yeah.
I see it differently now. I see another perspective.
Hmm.
And so always being willing to evolve, right? After you evaluate, evolve, change, move forward, see things openly and differently.
Yes.
I'm not limited to one avenue or married to one idea as a leader.
Yes. That is amazing. That is and well said too. I'm thinking as you're saying that leadership. So one of the workshops that I offer is around leaders who have to stand out.
Mm,
And so Malcolm had to stand out. And as a leader, we have to understand that simply because we are a leader walking in truth and coming to the knowledge of better today than yesterday
mm,
does not equate with there are no consequences. He
mm,
absolutely had consequences for
mm,
truth. And so as
mm,
a leader, we got to know sometimes you got to stand alone,
mm,
leader, but right is right all day long, Monday
mm,
through Monday, all day long, right is right, right?
mm,
And so sometimes they have consequences to those things, but it's still right.
mm.
That was very well said. I appreciate that, Ziggy. I really do. That was good. That was good. So
Thank
those were the two you wanted to give me? Those were
yeah,
the okay.
yeah. I'll stop there.
Yeah, that was good. I love
Thank
this.
you.
I love this.
Thank
So tell me a little bit about, and now this will be our last question because I just am sliding it in there, but tell me a little bit about the NAACP work you're doing.
So right now, I think I was fortunate enough to see see and hear Bernice King, Martin Luther King's
Yes, indeed.
youngest daughter. She, of course, continued a lot of his work, and she was here in Philly back in I think February at Mother Bethel, and one of the things she said was that her father and the SCLC always made sure that they were very strategic and specific about what issues they wanted to tackle. And
Mm-hmm.
so as I came into presidency, um, I was trying to figure out what issues that I want to tackle
Yeah.
as the president, and how do I set up the leadership or set up um, the next president for success.
Right.
So for me, it was mobilizing, right? Making
Mm-hmm.
sure that we're having individuals that can fully commit. We have to make sure that we have members. You can't
Yeah.
do anything. You can have all the right verbiage and make
Yeah.
nice little speeches and be a part of different events, and say that you want to move the needle on certain issues in our communities, but if you don't have the people to do
Yeah.
so, then it won't get done. So finding other young people who are just as passionate or can be convinced to be as passionate as we are, I started to build, right? I started to build my executive committee as well as my general body
Yeah.
of members. So that was the first thing, mobilizing and staying true to the essence of the NAACP and the mission statement and what we're really about, right? We
Right.
are called to advocate, to inform, to educate about
Mm-hmm.
social, political, and economic issues in our communities, um,
Mm-hmm.
and to be connected with legislators and people who can help us
Yeah.
to move the needle, not only based off of what we say, but based off of what we do. So
Yeah.
now, recently we had a great and wonderful conversation with individuals who are already in those positions, right? One being
Mm-hmm.
our pastor. We wanted
Yes.
a broad panel. We wanted a panel that consisted of legislators. We wanted a panel consisted of community leaders, of people that are sitting on city council or are getting ready to be elected to city council,
Right.
right?
Right.
People that are in Congress. And I was grateful that we were able to get some heavy hitters. We were able to get State Representative Jordan Harris. We were able to get a community leader by the name of he was running for council at large too at one point. His name is, why is his name slipping my mind? He was also my teacher at one point. Terrell Hagler, and Dan Williams,
Okay.
Anthony Bellman, excuse me, and who was the other gentleman? His name, he was just running for mayor, Eamon Brown. So we were
Okay.
able to get some people on a panel to drop some gems on us and to teach us how do we
Mm-hmm.
move forward as leaders and aspiring leaders, who will soon be in the positions in which you all currently sit in.
Yes.
It's about legacy. So teach,
Mm-hmm.
inform us, be authentic, as you said, with
Yeah.
us about what does it take to
Yeah.
not only to get in those roles, but to maintain and sustain ourselves in those roles. So starting with some knowledge and really building those connections, right? That's still also a part of the mobilizing. There has to be us getting connected with people who are in those seats to
Yes,
be able
indeed.
to say, hey, listen, um, we need you to get, this is the issue we need you to start
Yeah.
taking some bills on. Um,
Right.
so that's kind of what we're doing right now.
I love it. I love that. I love all the action words. Everything, mobilize, movement, sustain, like all these things. We're not just sitting. We
Mm,
cannot be idle. We cannot be idle.
that's
And so
right.
I love that. I appreciate you. I do. I am so glad you said yes to me to be able to do this podcast with you. I'm like, oh my, y'all, if y'all could have seen the technological challenges we was having before we got on this podcast, we was like, the devil is a liar.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And
Like,
this had to go forth. That's what it was.
yes, yeah, you are a powerhouse. I applaud you.
Oh,
I applaud you for your
thank you.
efforts. I do. I think you're a phenomenal person. I do. And I know I can't wait to serve with you in different capacities at church as well. So I am looking forward to it. I appreciate you. Is there any way we should be staying connected to Ziggy? Do you have a website or anything you want us to get to or anything?
Not a website, just follow me on Instagram.
Okay.
That's one of the main places that you can kind of see what I'm doing these days. But I probably should change my. No, I'm not gonna change my Instagram name. It's ____ zig. All right.
Yeah.
And you can
Yeah.
see all the great things that I'm doing, not only with the NAACP, but even with the school that I'm at, just building the drama program there.
Mhm.
Even just me performing in different spaces and in different capacities. So, yeah.
I saw you. I was looking at you yesterday, and I was like, "Oh, he doing like jazz." And I said, "I see you. I see you, honey. I see you." So I appreciate you. So
Oh,
hang on. I'm going to say bye to the audience, but you hang on, and we'll chit chat for a couple minutes.
certainly.
Thank you, audience. Thank you very much for joining TD Consulting, our People First podcast, episode 6 with Zymir Brunson, super powerhouse president of the Youth NAACP in the Philadelphia area. Ziggy, I appreciate you immensely. Thank you so much, and God
Thank you
bless you.
for having me.
If no one has said to my audience, if no one has said to you today that they love you, I love you.
Oh,
God loves you. People first. Take care.